Hi everyone, welcome back. In today's video I'm going to share a really simple recipe for cassava pone, and I know I've shared a recipe previously but I was using my cell phone to tape and a lot of people mentioned that they can't hear in the video, so I have to redo a lot of those previous videos that I did early on when I just started. So you'll see me redo some of those recipes because the sound is off in most of them, so please bear with me on that. This cassava pone is actually my mom's recipe. This is how I love cassava pone. Very simple, just coconut and cassava, and it's so delicious. You can definitely add the pumpkin and the sweet potato if you want. For me, I like my plain old cassava and coconut. So I hope you'll enjoy the video. I am munching on a piece of pone right now. I just love when it's so gooey and nice. I love it. So if you want to see how I do the recipe, keep watching. So the first thing I have here is my dry or mature coconut. You want to make sure it's a nice brown dry coconut, and when you shake it you should hear a good amount of coconut water in there. If it sounds kind of dry, then you don't want to get that one. It's probably an old coconut. So all I do is take a Chinese chopper, and I'm going to use the dull side. You can use a machete or a cutlass. I'm using the dull side, and as I turn the coconut, I'm just going to keep hitting it. And what this does is it hits the weak spots in the coconut, and then it'll just crack right open. And because I'm kind of a weakling, it's going to take a few tries, but you see, eventually it's going to crack open. So I got a nice, healthy, dry coconut. So once it's open, make sure you scope it out, make sure it doesn't have any bad spots or anything, because if it's spoiling, then you don't want to use it. So now what you want to do is take a paring knife, and you're going to go between the shell and the kernel, and you're going to try to dig the nut out. And this is a very crucial step. You want to be very, very careful because the knife can slip and cut you really bad. So just be careful. If you don't want to take the risk of getting cut or anything, then you can place your whole dry coconut into a bag, or even after this step, like when it's cracked open already, to get the nut out, you just place it in plastic bags and just pelt it on the concrete outside. And it is a stress reliever as well, and it's going to get the nut out too. So that's the next option you can consider. So I'm just going to work on getting the nut out, and I'll show you all the next step. So now I'm working on the yuca, or the cassava, and this was actually the most fun for me growing up. I loved peeling cassava because it was really fun to pull that plastic-like membrane off the cassava. So how I do this is I go around the cassava with the knife, and I just make a spiral-like incision all around, and then you just take your knife and you prise open one of the ends of the spiral, and then you just grab onto it with your finger and just start pulling. Sometimes it pulls easily, sometimes not, but this one gave me a little bit of trouble. So you can just peel it just like you'd peel any ground provision, but it's just really cool when the membrane pulls off without too much resistance. So now to prepare the cassava and the coconut to make the pone, I'm using the finest side on my box grater, and I'm just going to grate the cassava until they're nice and fine. And to save time and your fingers, you can cut these up into very small cubes and put them in your blender or in your food processor. The blender works better because it tends to grind it up more like a puree as opposed to just chop it up into fine pieces. So here are the ingredients I'm going to use to make the pone. I have my grated cassava or yuca. I have grated coconut here. And as you notice, it's more on the coarse side. It's not very pureed like the cassava. I like the coconut to have a little texture to it, but if you prefer it pureed, then you can grate it on the finer side or just pulse it more in your blender. And I'll also use some cinnamon, nutmeg, salt, ginger, 2 different types of sugars, butter, or you can use coconut oil and some mixed essence, or you can use some vanilla extract if you want. So now it's time to assemble the pone. To the grated cassava or yuca, I'm going in with the grated coconut, and you just want to mix until everything's well combined. Then you want to add your dry ingredients, so the cinnamon powder, the salt, and the 2 types of sugars, and I'm also going to grate my nutmeg in there. And then what's commonly used in the Caribbean is a hint of black pepper. So if you want, you can grind some fresh black pepper in there. My grandmother told me that it helps with digestion because the coconut and the cassava tend to upset your stomach sometimes, and the black pepper helps you to digest the pone easier. I'm also adding a little bit of ginger because the ginger gives a nice spicy kick. It's totally optional. You don't have to add it if you don't want to. I just love the way it tastes in pone. And lastly, I'm gonna add some nice rich butter in there. Make sure you use butter, not margarine. You can also use some coconut oil if you want to. So now it's time to pour our pone mixture into our pans to bake. So I'm using 2 pans, a 9-inch cast iron skillet as well as an 11 by 7-inch pan. They're both oiled with some coconut oil, and I'm just going to pour enough mixture into both so that it comes up to about halfway in the pan, because when it goes into the oven it tends to rise a little bit, so you want to leave room for that. And now it's going to go into the oven for an hour at 325 degrees Fahrenheit or about 163 degrees Celsius. So after an hour, the pone should look nice and brown and crusty at the top. If it doesn't and you want it to look that way, just leave it in the oven for the next 10 to 15 minutes. So while it's still hot, it's going to be very, very gooey, so you don't want to cut into it yet. For the purposes of this video, I'm not going to cut into it, even though I'm trying really, really hard to resist the temptation. So I'm going to let this cool down a bit and I'll cut into it and show you what it looks like. So as you can see, it's nice and gooey and glutinous on the inside. This is just how I like it. And you'll notice the little specks of coconut in there. As I mentioned before, if you don't like the coarse coconut pieces, you can definitely just puree it so it has a nice smooth texture. Another thing I forgot to mention is that you can add some milk to your mixture as well. It helps it to be more gooey. To me, the more gooey the pone is the better. It's just so delicious that way. You can also add some sweetened condensed milk. There are various ways to make a cassava pone, and this is just my version. So I'm happy to share it with you all today. I hope you'll leave all your comments below, your questions, suggestions. I'd love to hear from you all. Make sure you give the video a thumbs up if you liked it, and if you haven't subscribed yet, subscribe to the channel to see all the latest videos, and I will see you all in my next one. Until next time, bye!